The wild can be perilous for both humans and animals. Today, we'll delve into the tale of a man who encountered a group of wolf cubs. His care for them over a year led to an extraordinary event. Stick around to discover what unfolded. The sun shone through the trees as the man walked in the Alaskan woods early in the morning. After walking for a long time, he saw some timber wolves. One of them was caught in a trap. The man approached the wolf slowly because he didn't want to scare it. The wolf tried to move away but couldn't because of its injuries. When the man got closer, he saw that it was a mother wolf who had been taking care of her cubs. He decided to help her. After leaving the mother wolf, he looked for her cubs. He searched the ground for paw prints and found a trail leading deeper into the woods. The trail ended near a large spruce tree. He thought the cubs might be hiding inside. He tried to call them out by making sounds like a wolf, but they didn't come out. He kept trying, but they still didn't respond. Pacing around the area, the man tried to think of another way of getting the cubs out. Suddenly, he froze. He could have sworn that he heard a whimper, but it wasn't coming from the tree. He stood and held his breath, his ears catching on to every sound around him. There, it was almost inaudible, but he heard it. The man spun around, and a couple of meters away from him were the cubs, huddled together, shivering. They must have been terrified, newly born and torn away from their mother. One of them was looking directly at the man. This little pup left its siblings to tentatively hobble over to him. He reached out a hand and the cub licked his fingers. They were probably starving. He wasn't sure how long they had gone without feeding and decided not to waste another second. Gently, the man picked up the cubs and put them into his bag. They did not resist, and he was grateful since it made the journey back easy. Once again, he caught sight of the she-wolf. This time, as she saw the man approach her, there was nothing fearful in her movements. She let out a whine, and her cubs responded. He set the bag down onto the ground, and the young pups ran to their mother, although she seemed glad to be reunited with her young. She appeared to be on edge with the man around. She was still trapped and clearly injured, but the man was unsure of how to get her out. Her growl suggested that she did not want him close by. Her protective instincts must have been at an all-time high. The man decided that what she needed most at that moment was food, so he left. Eventually, he stumbled across the carcass of a deer. He took some and hurried back to the wolf. He knew better than to approach her and resorted to throwing bits of the meat instead. She lapped it all up in no time. The man was set on getting on the mother's good side. After a few days of feeding her and her cubs, he had at least earned their trust. However, the she-wolf still appeared to be in attack mood. He did not want to risk getting hurt, so he was especially careful when around her. Nevertheless, his efforts were not in vain. It was just a brief moment, but he saw it. Her tail wagged. One day, the man put his hand on the she-wolf's leg. She winced in pain but appeared okay with him touching her. He immediately got to work and removed her from the trap. She was finally free. Instead of running away with her cubs, she moved towards the man. She licked his fingers, which was a very positive sign. Instead of simply running away into the forest, she turned towards the man. He understood the gesture as an invitation. He followed her and her cubs through the trees, and eventually they reached a beautiful meadow. In the meadow was a wolf pack, excited about their reunion. All of the wolves howled. Although the man stayed the night, sleeping by wolves under the moonlight, he knew it was time for him to go. So he packed his stuff and headed back to the forest through the meadow. He didn't know what compelled him to turn around, but when he did, he was glad. The she-wolf and her cubs watched him as he waved goodbye. She howled a heart-wrenchingly mournful howl. 1 year later, the man returned to that forest. He walked past the rusted trap which once held the she-wolf captive. Now that he was back, there was a particular place he had to see again. He climbed the mountain, heading towards the meadow, with his heart in his throat. Once he reached the place, he let out a long and loud howl. After a couple of seconds, the echo of a wolf's howl reached him. He ran towards it. He ran until he was out of breath, and it felt like his legs were on fire. But that discomfort was worth it because then he saw her. The Alaskan timber wolf stared back at him, her gray tail moving side to side. She recognized him. Then the man watched her leave. He understood why she had to and made no effort to stop her. The bond he made with the wolf and her cubs is something that was no ordinary feat, but they were wild animals and deserved to be free. That moment didn't last long, but it would be forever etched into the man's mind. For him, it is a memory that remains as vivid as a painting. I'm unsure if this story is true, as I came across it on the internet and wanted to share it with you. What are your thoughts? Do you think the story could be real? Foxes, similar to wolves, are animals that Michaela Raines cares deeply about. She is the founder of Saga Fox, a sanctuary in Minnesota dedicated to foxes. Many foxes that are not suitable for fur production find their way to Michaela's sanctuary. Foxes in the fur industry are often removed for various reasons, including poor fur quality, illness, or rejection by their mother. One fox, Valentine, found his way to the sanctuary due to being born with a genetic deformity. Valentine's gums don't stop growing, which means that he has to get them trimmed every year. Nonetheless, his condition does not cause him any pain, and he lives a happy, normal life. Michaela says that the foxes she rescues first come to the sanctuary as terrified, caged animals. These animal industries often ignore the fact that animals are intelligent creatures, and when they have been forced to live without love and care, they can potentially turn dangerous or depressed. However, because of people like Michaela, these foxes get a second chance at living. She claims that every fox she's rescued has been able to go from a fearful creature to a tame one. Because foxes are still wild animals, the definition of a tame fox is not like a puppy or a kitten. Rather, they become social with humans and are happy to interact with them. Michaela says it's such a beautiful thing to see them come out of their shells and have their own personalities. Valentine's personality is quite shy, according to Michaela. He is a lot more submissive than the other foxes, yet he is still popular. Valentine even has his own sponsor. Although she lives in the UK, she has made an effort to travel and see Valentine in person. She has done this several times. Valentine's sponsor is very committed to adopting him, even though this is not an easy task. Most people who apply do not meet the qualifications, but she is trying nevertheless. Valentine is very important to her. Although the man and the wolf ended up parting ways, Valentine's story is an example of how a wild animal can have a long-lasting relationship with a human. Valentine's sponsor understands that foxes are still wild and cannot live like a domesticated pet. Nevertheless, she is willing to do whatever she can for her fox. On a mission, the previous animals mentioned can typically be thought of as beautiful. In spite of being wild animals, most people can see the elegance in foxes and wolves. On the other hand, goats experience more negative stereotypes than positive ones. This explains why very few people think about trying to save them. However, Johanna never understood the general dislike for these animals. Johanna has a unique legacy. She has become the savior of the hornless Icelandic goats, a breed that has only been seen on the grasslands of Iceland. She has loved them from a young age, in spite of the criticism she has received for caring about them, even from her own family. To this day, she continues to defend them. She herself never really understood why she felt so connected to them. But this lack of a definitive answer did not stop her from becoming their protector. In the late 1990s, the breed of goats was almost extinct. There were only 4 hornless goats left in all of Iceland. Johanna saved them because their lives were in danger. After rescuing the last few Icelandic goats, Johanna became a goat farmer. Her main goal was to breed them so that they were no longer at risk. As a farmer, she encouraged people to start using goat products. The mission was not easy. Her farm almost went bankrupt, and there were plans for the bank to take it, which would have meant losing the goats. Fortunately, many people sympathized with Johanna and her animals, so they raised enough money to help them. Before, there were only 4 goats. Now, it is estimated that the farm has over 200 goats. Sometimes, an animal and a human can build a relationship that benefits both. It is important to look out for any life that needs saving. We hope you enjoyed hearing about these heroes. See you in the next video.